Why do some sergeants major focus on boot blousing instead of real problems? Sergeant Major Pruitt was infamous across the entire battalion. Guy would walk past broken equipment, leaking vehicles, and safety violations without blinking. But if your boots weren't bloused correctly, he'd stop everything. I'm talking full inspection, measuring the exact height of the blouse above your boot, checking if the elastic was regulation issue, making you redo it 3 times until it met his standards. Our company had real issues. Half our vehicles were deadline for maintenance. The arms room had a failing security inspection coming up. We were short-staffed by 15 soldiers, but Sergeant Major Pruitt cared about boot blousing. Every morning formation, same routine. He'd walk the ranks looking for uniform violations, ignored the specialist who showed up 30 minutes late, didn't notice the private who was obviously hungover, just zeroed in on boots. Private Brennan, your left boot is bloused a quarter inch lower than your right. Fix it. Brennan would have to step out of formation, redo his boots while everyone waited. Sometimes took 10 minutes, made us late for everything. Our first sergeant, Curtis Dalton, was going insane. Sergeant Major, we've got a vehicle deadline rate of 60%. Maybe we should focus on that? Pruitt just shook his head. Standards, First Sergeant. We maintain standards or we maintain nothing. The company started calling him Blousing Bob behind his back. He became a joke. The Sergeant Major who cared more about appearance than readiness. Things came to a head during a major inspection. Brigade commander was coming to evaluate our company. This was career-making stuff. Pass this inspection, our commander gets promoted. Fail it, we all look bad. We spent 2 weeks preparing. Fixed vehicles, organized supply rooms, updated paperwork. Everything was perfect. Morning of the inspection, Sergeant Major Pruitt gathered us at 0500. 2 hours before the brigade commander arrived. We figured he'd do a final check of our equipment. Instead, he lined up the entire company and inspected every single soldier's boot blousing. Vincent, too loose. Everett, uneven. Sterling, wrong elastic band. Everyone who I call out, you're staying here to fix it while the rest prep the vehicles. He pulled 15 soldiers out of the lineup, made them spend 90 minutes redoing their boots while critical inspection prep went unfinished. First Sergeant Dalton was furious. Sergeant Major, the brigade commander doesn't care about boots. He's inspecting vehicle readiness. He'll see these soldiers first, won't he? First impression is everything. Brigade Commander Westfield arrived at 0700 sharp. Tall guy, combat veteran, looked like he'd seen everything twice. He stepped out of his vehicle and the first thing he did was trip. Caught his foot on a piece of torn engineer tape we'd used to mark the inspection road. Almost face planted in front of everyone. His aide caught him. Westfield looked down at the tape, then around at our prep area. His expression changed completely. First Sergeant Dalton, who prepared this area? Dalton stammered. Sir, we had a team working on it, but Sergeant Major Pruitt reassigned them to uniform corrections. Westfield looked at Pruitt. You pulled people from safety prep for uniforms? Standards, sir. Proper military appearance reflects. Sergeant Major, I almost just broke my neck because someone left a tripping hazard in a high traffic area. That's not a standards issue. That's a safety failure. The inspection went downhill fast. Westfield found issues everywhere. Missing safety equipment, poorly secured tools, trip hazards in work areas. All stuff we would have caught if we'd had those extra 15 soldiers doing proper prep instead of fixing their boots. Our company failed the inspection. Commander didn't get his promotion. First Sergeant Dalton got a formal counseling statement. Sergeant Major Pruitt was transferred within a month, sent to some desk job at division headquarters. Everyone assumed it was punishment for the failed inspection. That's what we thought until Pruitt's replacement arrived. Sergeant Major Quincy. First day, he gathered the entire company. I know what you all think about Sergeant Major Pruitt. Boot blousing Bob, right? I heard the nickname. Everyone stayed quiet. Quincy pulled out a folder. What you didn't know is that Pruitt had been documenting safety violations for 6 months, sending reports up to brigade that were being ignored. He knew this company had systemic issues. He opened the folder. Pages of detailed reports, photos of tripping hazards, improperly stored equipment, safety violations, all dated weeks before the inspection. Pruitt also knew that First Sergeant Dalton was covering up the problems, making things look good on paper while safety got worse. He couldn't prove it directly, so he did something smart. Quincy pulled out another document. He forced a public failure, made sure the brigade commander saw exactly what happens when leaders prioritize appearance over substance, because that's what Dalton was doing, making everything look good while real problems festered. The room went dead silent. The boot blousing? That was Pruitt being deliberately obtuse, making a point, showing that obsessing over meaningless details while ignoring critical issues leads to failure. He sacrificed his own reputation to expose a bigger problem. Quincy looked directly at where Dalton used to stand. New First Sergeant stood there now. Dalton's under investigation for falsifying maintenance reports. Turns out he'd been signing off on vehicles that weren't actually fixed. All came out after the inspection failure prompted a deeper review. He held up one final paper. This is from Sergeant Major Pruitt, written the day before he transferred. He says, and I quote, sometimes you have to focus on boot blousing so loudly that everyone notices what you're not focusing on. 3 months later, Dalton was dishonorably discharged. Vehicle maintenance improved dramatically. Safety violations dropped to near zero. Pruitt retired last year. Turns out he'd been doing the same thing at 3 different assignments, playing the fool to expose deeper corruption. His boots were always bloused perfectly though. Guy had standards, even when he was pretending not to.